And welcome back. This is Doyle Bueller. Today, I'm talking with Jamie Shanks, who is one of the world's leading social selling experts, the author of Social Selling Mastery, and the CEO of Sales for Life. And we get into a pretty deep conversation about what is social selling, how to define your why in the digital space, and actually how to put these pieces together to sell better in the digital space as well. And we talk about the evolution of sales from sort of the traditional side of things to how do you actually embrace that for small companies, but also medium-sized companies and enterprises as well. They need to be able to take the skills of social selling and apply it in an appropriate manner. Otherwise, as Jamie says, they're going to be real key triggers of dropping sales and looking at, hey, what's going on? The sales are not happening and we need some skills. So there's a lot of triggers that we talk about also in terms of getting that, getting a social selling program done properly, getting it set up and established within your business so that you know how it works and how it can actually help your business as well. So looking forward to the conversation. Coming up next, Jamie Shanks.
Overwhelmed with online or just wanting to learn more about how you can build a successful business amidst all of the self-appointed gurus, big buzzwords and empty promises? The Breaking Digital podcast by Doyle Bueller tells you exactly what smart entrepreneurs need to know to escape the clutter, get clear of the confusion, and pass the bullshit of building and growing a successful business online. It's about digital leadership and delivering the best value for your business online to your audience. Now, here's your host and author of the book on digital leadership and online marketing, The Digital Delusion, Doyle Bueller.
Welcome back. Today I'm with Jamie Shanks, all the way from Toronto, Canada. Jamie's the author of the Social Selling Mastery book, which just came out in September of 2016, CEO of Sales for Life, and is one of the world's leading social selling experts. Welcome to the program, Jamie.
Thank you so much for the invite.
Yeah, no worries. How are things for you? How's business going?
Business is going great. We're here in Toronto, Canada, and the spring is starting to peak out. So I'm excited to actually wear shorts again.
Oh, fantastic. Well, you might need some tan because I'm sure your legs are pretty pale after a cold winter, right?
Absolutely.
Cool. So tell me a little bit about yourself and your business and this thing we've been hearing a lot of buzz about, social selling.
So we are the world's largest training provider on a topic called social selling. So we've kind of built a de facto standard curriculum that is for sales professionals, frontline sales managers, and marketing professionals to basically move the sales force and transition them from an analog selling world to a digital selling world, ultimately to drive incremental pipeline into the business that the company was not achieving before in an analog world.
So do you find that businesses aren't selling anymore, or like why do you sort of need to hit them over the head and say, hey, let's go do social selling?
Basically, the buyer became digital from underneath them. Over the last 5 years or 10 years, you think of yourself as a consumer, you were able to arm yourself with information to make informed decisions based on online information, based on social peer-to-peer networking, based on online groups and chats. Basically, you as the consumer or the buyer can do almost or more, depending on the industry you're in and the statistics you read, almost 50% of your learning and your buying journey can happen without a sales professional. So as Daniel Pink would call it, caveat venditur, let the seller beware that the buyer is now an informed buyer. And so what's happened is that buyer has been leveraging digital for years, but the seller is still selling still selling the way they sold in the 20th century: phone, email, and it's time to bridge that gap and to ensure that the buyer and the seller are meeting in the same places, educating in the same places, and engaging in the same places.
And so it sounds like salespeople are having to catch up with social media and
Correct.
sort of that digital process. That correct?
Correct. Yeah. So in the business to consumer world, the e-commerce or selling to business consumer, the seller has kind of caught up to the buyer. Now, it's not perfect science, but they've done an admirable job of integrating to where the buyer is. In the business to business world, only 1 to 2% of the market has actually made that digital shift, and that digital that maturity curve has happened in the technology space and the telecom space first, but other industries are very much lagging. Right there, if you're in healthcare or professional services or manufacturing, for the most part, you have almost no idea what the word social selling means. And that in itself shows that you're still selling to the buyer the same way that your peers sold to the buyer in the 1990s, which is just not the way that the buyer buys anymore.
Yeah, they've updated sort of how they go about purchasing things.
Correct.
Obviously. But why is there that lag though of, between that? And are we talking just business to consumer or business to business as well?
So why is sorry, just to reframe the question, why is the lag happening?
Yeah, why do you feel that there's this lag between, well, I guess the consumer is driving that behavior then, I guess, because without social, for example, we would still be selling the same way we've always been selling, kind of thing, or not?
I think maybe it has to, if I really boiled it down to why the business consumer did it first, the business consumer has much more real-time feedback. You think about it, if I was a clothing retailer or an e-commerce site, I get feedback from the buyer very quickly, and I don't stay in business very long if I can't adjust. Where business to business, it's the buyer evolved slowly, and the sales professional didn't have to make a change, because maybe their sales cycles are a year or 2 years, and what they were doing still was helping them make their number. It's not like a tap got turned off. Whereas in business consumer, if you didn't figure it out at the e-commerce level, the tap gets turned off. But at business to business, it's just that the tap slows down. And the business to business sales leaders, they think to throw more bodies or to throw more calls or more emails at the problem. So they believe, let's increase volumes or velocity, that maybe that'll solve the problem. But that is kind of a broke fix model. It's not really looking at the core problem. And that core problem is you need to be addressing the buyer much earlier on the process, and that buyer is already digital at the time.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So what makes a good sales leader today then with these new capabilities that they have right in front of them?
It's somebody that first embraces the why should I change. So I'm a believer that every seller or sales leader needs to go through 3 stages. You basically have to go through a mindset shift, then you have to go through a skill set shift, and then you have to go to a toolkit shift to help you. But the first being the mindset. You have to recognize that I, as a leader, am willing to look at my own playbook and how I'm coaching and leading and keeping my team accountable, and say, guess what? The world has evolved around me, and I'm willing to admit that I need to change my skills. I need to address the new buyer, and so that mindset shift has to come first. They say, you know what? The playbook I've been running, maybe it's not good enough anymore. Then from there, they're arming themselves with the information to understand what are the new digital activities they should be measuring, what are the skills that the team needs to have, and a lot of that is going to be foreign to the sales leader. So they're going to have to whether turn to their sales enablement team or turn to a third party and say, help teach this to me. I'm in our world, there's digital natives and digital immigrants. The average sales leader is what's known as a digital immigrant. They are not from this place. And so they need to go find a way to learn.
Yeah, yeah. And is this like a top down or a bottom up like push? Because what symptoms would the sales part of the business see slowing down, right? And what sort of, you said there's a mind shift or a mindset thing that says, hey, something's going on. I'm not sure what it is, but we're not selling as much, so I therefore need to do such and such. So does it just sort of come out in terms of, hey, we're not selling as much, or hey, there's this fantastic new platform selling called social selling? Like what do you feel is the trigger?
Typically, the trigger is there's basically two major triggers. You have a vast majority of companies see the yield or throughput per sales professional dropping. So it's a percentage of sales quota attainment per rep is shrinking from averages where it might have been 7 or 8 of 10 of your sales professionals would make quota. Then it shrank to 6 out of 10. And now the average company is less than 50%. So that's the major trigger. And then the minor trigger is for very, very progressive companies who have an education based or a model where they invest in themselves and they understand they need to increase the yield and throughput for their team proactively. They're just looking for innovative skills to give their team. But let's concentrate on the vast majority. It is almost always triggered by we are not creating enough leads or enough opportunities. We are mining too much business out of our existing account structure, and we are not finding net new customers. Help us solve that problem. And at the end of the day, social selling is just a potential solution to that problem. It's not the solution. It's one of the avenues that they need to explore.
Yeah, and what are some of the other avenues that they could explore?
Well, and it's any way to get more yield and throughput. So training and education and skills are one. Sales automation and tools are another. Um, Efficiencies within the sales model. So companies are segmenting their sales professionals to not do all the tasks from top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel. They might say, okay, we've got demand gen specialists combing leads for us. Then we've got SDRs and BDRs calling into those accounts to book meetings. And we're even going to segment those SDRs or BDRs. Some are inbound, some are outbound. Then the field reps. The field reps are going to do this task, but they're going to bring in value or sales engineers to help them along the journey. So hyper specialization is another way that companies are looking at improving yield and throughput. So what social selling is a process that every sales professional should throw into their toolkit. Essentially, it's like icing on the cake. You need to have a baseline sales methodology or the baseline way of selling, and then you're just incrementally improving your skills by saying, hey, the phone and email is not the only way to strike up a conversation and to generate new business. Well, so is social.
Yeah, but it's not like a fad. It's not sort of like a flavor of the month. It's you're building it from a more strategic standpoint. Is that correct?
Way I would turn to people and say, do you think social is going to, as in the act of using social media, is going to regress and become a fad? And if somebody could look me in the eyes and say yes, then I'd say, okay, well,
Yes.
so then fine. But
Yeah.
the reality is, we as a society are going to use digital platforms more and more. And so, if that is an upward trend, then so is the use of the buyer-seller relationship within those trends. Like
Mm.
it's, and maybe it's because I sell hammers and everything looks like nails, but to me, it only makes sense that if the
Yeah.
world is becoming more digital, this buyer and the seller need to meet in that digital world.
Yeah. So in essence, you're kind of future proofing yourself too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So can you take us through like the processes or the strategies that you would use to enable these companies to become more effective at social selling?
Yeah. So, in a nutshell, what we teach sales professionals to do is to ultimately get to a daily social selling routine. And because social selling tips, tricks, and tactics by themselves, basically, it's like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. A routine put together where it's executable every deal every day is far greater than just a random assortment of tips. So what we
Hmm.
teach sales professionals to do in under 30 minutes a day is a routine we call FEED: find, engage, educate, and develop. And so they can look at any account that they're working or every single day, and they say to themselves, okay, I'm gonna go find the right buyers. I'm gonna engage them. I'm going to educate the market. I'm going to develop my network within that account or subset of accounts. And I'm going to do it every day. And it's like compound interest. It starts to really add up over time. And that's the basic building blocks to social selling.
No, fascinating. And what would be some of the pitfalls that businesses would encounter along this path?
Biggest two pitfalls. Pitfall number one: frontline sales managers falling down and not keeping accountability or coaching towards the very digital activities that would drive results. So basically, they look at social selling as like a pill or a widget, and they say, "Okay,
Mm,
let's educate our team, and then magic's going to happen." Well, no, you have to every week in your one-on-ones keep the team accountable to the same activities. Um, that are going to drive success. And then the second is marketing. Teams will work towards a social selling goal as a sales force, but then marketing doesn't get involved. Well, you can't have content and digital assets without marketing. So they have to be as part of the program as well.
no, that's good. And that sort of leaves, uh, I guess, leaves sort of a good road of opportunity then for those who sort of engage it and enable it. Do you see companies out there that are like really kind of stubbing their toe along the way of introducing social selling?
Almost.
Most. Okay.
This is we're still in the caveman days. So we're leaving the
Mm,
caveman days, and we're kind of moving into whatever the next phase was.
yeah.
It's such early days, and everybody's still trying to figure it out. Um, Even though everybody's early in the days, we just have 300 engagement history. We've trained 300 plus global customers, so we've seen the failure. Basically, our value proposition is speed to market, speed to revenue. And I've watched companies, and this has happened a number of times, where companies would try to figure this out for themselves for 18 months, and then they put their hands up and say, okay, we need to bring in help. And it's, after 300 engagements, we've learned how to shave that learning curve down to a month or two, right? Instead of taking 100 or 365 or 500 days to learn something, take 30, right? And that's what we do.
Yeah. So you sort of accelerate their knowledge, their understanding, and the processes and strategies behind it.
Exactly. Yeah. So our job is a training company, and we bring in a training program that helps the frontline sales managers, the sales professionals, and the marketers all beat to the same drum and run with this and immediately start creating revenue from social.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. And how quickly can you see results typically?
Within the first 30 to 60 days. And within 90 days, because to become certified within our program, we force every single student to generate a net new opportunity based on the social selling learnings that we taught them. And they have to present it back to their frontline sales manager as a kind of a certification business case. So we're forcing sales activity and forcing sales results out of the program.
Wow, that sounds like an exciting program. How do you or what? So social selling is sort of in its infancy. Can you sort of do you have any examples of some companies that are nailing it? Either ones that you have trained or perhaps not. Some sort of that are doing quite well with this.
Yeah, and in the United States, you would have companies like SAS Institute has created $500 million in incremental pipeline over 3
Wow.
years as we've been working with them. And Dassault Systems globally has enabled their channel partner program, so that their internal team and their channel team are now becoming digital. We've had teams where they've done it in business units, like ServiceNow out of Silicon Valley. They were able to create $1.1 million in actual revenue and 10 million in pipeline in 90 days because they
Wow.
just turned on their sales team to leveraging these digital tools.
So yeah, no, that's so specific. And did it get sort of a? Did you? You're obviously author of the book Social Selling Mastery as well. Now, did you sort of have that book in mind and then sort of launch the business, or launch the business and then wrote the book?
Oh yeah, yeah. So the business had been around for 4 years, and the book is based on elements of our curriculum. Essentially, it's
Mm,
it's taking highlights to be able to give people the roadmap necessary um, to get started. And yeah, so we just we what we did is mirrored the curriculum.
okay. No, that's cool. And how does it feel getting a book out there and putting all those pieces together?
It feels good to have a business card that people don't throw in the garbage.
Okay. A heavy business card too.
Yeah. Very heavy
That's
business card you can't throw in the garbage without feeling guilty.
yeah. Well, we were talking obviously a little bit earlier about, being in Canada and Australia and Adelaide and Winnipeg and all these places. I think I picked your book up in Calgary, so
Oh,
just so you know.
fantastic.
Yeah,
That's
actually, yeah, I
fantastic.
did. It was the chapters in just South Calgary there. So no, it was a really good
I was
book.
actually born there.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So it's even a smaller world. You've been to Adelaide
yeah, yeah.
and loved it, as I heard.
You know,
Just
I,
kidding.
I loved it so much that we named our daughter Henley because
Oh, okay.
I lived on Henley Beach in
Henley.
Adelaide.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's cool. That's awesome. One graph I saw here that was just sort of it was quite like serendipitous because I've been using the statistics for quite some time, but I didn't know where they came from. It was your demand generation pyramid, where it's you have ready to purchase sort of at this peak of the pyramid, and then you have open to buying but not looking and not thinking about it,
Yeah, Chet
indifferent.
Holmes International. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was really cool because I've been actually using that data in presentations and slide shares and talking about it. So it was really quite good to see that. Now, why do you think we've sort of, or is that as sort of a traditional sales approach or traditional sales response as well? Because when we go into a shop or whether it's a large business or whatever, like most people, I think, online are inclined to believe that everybody buys from them kind of right now, but obviously this graph and your experience would say otherwise. Why do you think that is? Like, are a lot of businesses just kind of adopting well, we're just going digital, so let's therefore use what we already knew and already tried?
Yeah. At the end of the day, I mean, I'll speak to my own business. Okay, so if I'm literally looking at our a whiteboard of pipelines, we have in contract proposals, and if you work upwards the funnel, we'll call them sales qualified leads that are in opportunity, sales accepted leads, and so forth. We have 1/10 in contract that we do in sales qualified leads and opportunities, and 1/5 of what we have in proposal, as an example. The reality is the reason every pipeline looks like a funnel is because one end is dramatically smaller than the next. And the reality is I might have 5 deals in contract right now, but I have 50 customers that are in expressions of interest kind of thing. And it's naive to think that they're all ready to buy. What they are interested in learning more. And what digital does is the biggest benefit it has for sales executives who are working a longer sales cycle and or customer success is every one of you would have experienced what we call the dead zone. It's that period of time where a buyer says, I'm going to call you back next week. I promise we're going to do the deal. And 1 week goes by, and then 5 weeks go by, and then 10 weeks go by, and you never hear from the customer. And what are you going to do? You're going to call them every week and say, so you ready to buy yet? the next week, so you're ready to buy it. It
Yeah.
gives you an opportunity to realize they're clear. There's either internal or external factors going on, and I need to continue to educate them and continue to help them along a journey. So when that time does make sense for them, it becomes no-brainer for them to say, you know what? I now have a very clear picture of how we're going to move forward. I'm ready to go. What it does is it drowns out your competitors, right? It muffles their noise by you constantly educating them. By the time, when it's time for them to resurface looking at purchasing, they don't even think to, now maybe I should check out 4 competitors. It's no, no, no. I've kind of made up my mind over the last 3 months. I've been learning about this company. I want to move forward with this company. I've made my mind up.
Yeah, and it's through educating them through that process.
Yeah.
So instead of being the annoying sales guy, you're actually informing them, you're educating them to make a decision or to help them reach that goal.
Correct.
So, and that's really what that sales funnel is about. When you look at it from that perspective, is how do you educate that person along that pathway?
Yep, exactly.
So that would be like the crux of social selling, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the crux of social selling is whether you like it or not, your buyers are going to learn. You cannot stop that. Our buyers consume 7.4 assets before they buy on average, because we use marketing automation to track that. So it's either going to be our 7.4 assets or it's going to be somebody else's. But they're going to learn. So you might as well facilitate that learning. And then, like the movie Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio, plant the seeds of Inception in their mind first. So when it germinates, it's germinating your value proposition and your, whatever you do, and it's not germinating somebody else's.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a good way to looking at it as well. Is being that primary asset, being that, or being able to deliver those primary assets.
Yep.
Do you feel that there's like a lot of social is about personal branding? How does that sort of fit in the whole equation? Like, does the sales team become personal branding experts, or is it the company that becomes branding expert with great personal brands? Like, how would you delineate that?
People buy from people first, and people buy from people they like and trust, and whatever that saying is, can see themselves within that person. We had a customer once that put UTM parameter codes, so tracking codes, on their LinkedIn profiles to determine, were people looking at the sales professionals' LinkedIn profiles before the solutions page on our website, or vice versa. And 80% of deals, they were actually checking out the LinkedIn profiles of the sales professionals that were reaching out to that buyer before they went to the solutions page. So what happens is the buyer chooses very quickly, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, makes assessments about those sales professionals, kind of sizes them up, determines, can I trust these people? Do I want to contact this person back? Do I want to do business with them? And then, only then, do they move further down the funnel to look at the company. The reality is, if I don't believe in you, I'm definitely not going to believe in the solutions you represent. So I need to overcome the barrier that you, as the brand, as somebody I kind of want to do business with, and then whatever you're selling, whether it's a product or service, I'm more apt to listen.
Yeah, but you don't have to be the sort of the celebrity brand. You don't have to be the super hyped brand. You just have to get out there and be known.
No, and if I were selling educational I'm selling educational software to the K through 12 market, as an example, the high school market kind of thing. And I have 50 accounts. My job is that within my geographic territory or my industry or whatever my world is, my snow globe world, I want everyone in that world to know who I am, trust me, like me, see me as a resource, where I am sharing educational school best practices, what's going on in the market in education, what's the future state of the high school market 5 years from now. I want people to look at me and go, my Lord, this person understands the education space better than the principal that works at that school. Like that's
Yeah.
the purpose of the sales professional. And unfortunately, most sales professionals treat their jobs like a job. They don't treat it like a career and where they are going to be the very best at what they do.
Yeah, no, fascinating. That's a good approach to take is, yeah, get out there, be known, liked, and trusted within your industry. So just to wrap up then, Jamie, what do you see coming next, or is there a next? Like, how is social selling going to evolve over the next, 4 to 6 years type of thing?
Yeah, it's a furthering digitization of the commercial teams. So my why, what I want to achieve, I want to be able to train over 1 million sales professionals globally and make a massive impact on the sales community. And so for the next 5 years, it's one by one sales professionals moving from an analog world to a digital world. And tools will evolve and change, but at the end of the day, digitization of the commercial sales force that's just an inevitability, and we want to help that.
That's where the strength comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Excellent. Well, thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about yourself and social selling. How can we find you in the digital space?
Reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name's Jamie Shanks, CEO of Sales for Life, and happy to connect and happy to help any way that we can.
Thank you so much, Jamie, and we will see you online.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to Breaking Digital, the podcast for smart entrepreneurs wanting to become true digital leaders in their industry and to own online. If you have any comments on the program, please feel free to connect on Twitter @DoyleBuehler with the hashtag #OwnOnline. I would really appreciate it if you could share this podcast with your network, as I'm sure they will get some value from it for building their successful business online as well. You can find the resources that we talked about, as well as the transcript and full podcast for download on thedigitaldelusion.com/podcast or on iTunes or on SoundCloud. I'm Doyle Buehler, and I will see you online.
Thank you for listening to Breaking Digital with Doyle Buehler. While he goes and makes a sandwich, you can find all of the notes, links, and details on this podcast by visiting thedigitaldelusion.com/podcast. Go on and click that now. www.thedigitaldelusion.com/podcast. I'll definitely click that. If you'd like a free copy of the book, The Digital Delusion, How to Overcome the Misguidance and Misinformation Online, just send an email to doyle@thedigitaldelusion.com. See you online.